What I would tell you is this: if you're not hungry, but you just keep eating, that's a recognition that a lot of people make when they do their first Thanksgiving with me. You don't need to eat if you're not hungry. But if you want to have your nice Thanksgiving dinner, wait an hour, have your dessert, or wait an hour and a half, go for a walk, have your dessert, because that's what you want, perfect. When you have your dessert, you're probably not going to be hungry for it. That's okay. I want you guys to move past that. The following 2 to 3 days past Thanksgiving, you may have some hunger issues. So the best thing to do is get back on track with your meal spacing the next day. Get your protein into all of your meals. Do not supplement, or you are going to be hungry later in the day, and also those next 2 or 3 days, because you ate a majority of your food at the end of the day, and you actually you didn't starve yourself, but you only gave yourself very low calorie, higher volume food for breakfast and lunch, which we talked about last week. For most of you, I want you to get back on your supplements and your water routine. If you did not do that on Thanksgiving, I would prefer that you actually try to drink the same amount of water on Thanksgiving. That way you will not see as much recoil on the scale the following few days, okay? For most of you, I'm going to have you take an elective diet break if you've been adherent and you turned in your data this week. If you did not turn in your data this week, you are not to do a diet break. You already had one, okay? So the diet break controlled for Thanksgiving is going to be like this: no food scale whatsoever. And for those of you traveling to someone else's house where you will be having all your meals there, you are not to bring that food scale out at all. Do you hear me? And the reason is we don't want people to think that we are unreasonable by having to bring our food scale to everything when you guys know that you can estimate, okay? So if you did not check in with me and I did not give you a controlled diet break, you are not to take one. You are to try to hit your macros as closely as possible, even if Thanksgiving has to be an estimation. But I want you to make sure that you do scale weigh breakfast and lunch, okay? Because you should not be starving all day just so that you can binge at Thanksgiving. That is a bad, terrible food behavior that we need to get rid of, okay? We want to make sure that we estimate to hit our macros if you are brand new to the program, because if not, we're going to be starting over again, having to hit that 7 to 10 day period of controlled, absolute adherent tracking before you see your weight drop. I don't want that. I would rather have you be in the ballpark, because remember, something versus nothing is always better than nothing. Do not leave blanks in your spreadsheet. That means that you are off your plan. It means that you chose to be off your plan and you did not intend to ask for help. You do not need non-logging days. That is lazy. You guys are not lazy. You guys are hard workers. It only takes 5 minutes to put your food in your tracker. So I want you to make sure that you add those meals, even if they are an estimate. You can take photographs of them and enter them later. If you're with family, put your phone away, enjoy yourself. I'm giving you that freedom. Okay, I had to put my phone in the holder because my arm's getting really tired. Oh, better lighting too. Let's put that. Sorry about that, you guys. And then I went and hit the pause button. So we're going to go into the laws of leaning. Why you have not been seeing success because of your calorie deficit. A lot of you are with me for that exact reason. You've gotten to the point where you actually are starting to put weight on as you age because of your calorie deficit. And what's happened over time is that because you went into a greater calorie deficit when your hormones started to become insufficient, you started to stress the metabolism and made the body have to downshift to now accommodate for less calories. So basically, it's called an adaptation. Other things that can cause you not to lose weight, which I feel are kind of in that 1 to 5% range, which can matter for a lot of people, would be stress, not getting enough vitamin D, digestion and absorption is not optimal. You are not what you eat. You are what you digest and absorb. Our gut health will determine that. That's why you guys hear me a lot talking about probiotics and making sure that if you have not been eating a higher protein diet, that you get the correct enzymes in your body. If I've not told you that you need to be concerned with that, you don't need to be. But if you're constantly having bloating and things like that, that could be one of the reasons that you are not actually losing weight, because you're not absorbing. You're not processing your food. Your nutrients are not there and readily available to make hormones. That is a huge issue, okay? Stress is number 2. A lot of you guys are stewing on problems and you're telling me about them, and I'm trying to help you manage those. And we've been doing a great job. You guys have all been doing a great job. Not one of you has given me the same, song and dance. You're all really trying to implement the strategies that I give you. But when you stew on a problem, the body will continuously release cortisol. And a chronically elevated level of cortisol, like I talked about a few weeks back, can lead to serious issues. One of those is that it suppresses the immune system and will increase BP, blood pressure, and blood sugar. What do we know about blood sugar when it goes up? Well, when it goes up, we usually tend to see a decrease in libido, sex drive, which I'm going to be talking about a little bit more, even though I know that a lot of people are very afraid of the word sex drive. But let's face it, if we're going to look good naked, then most of you are married and you probably care about your sex drive. I mean, I would, okay? So we want to make sure that when we go into the holiday season, we're not taking on all this extra additional stress, because we know that that kind of stress, even with work, having these kids back at home and having to teach them, can also create problems with acne. It can contribute to weight loss or weight gain, and not in a healthful way. And usually that weight gain is right in the midsection, okay? Another key and contributing factor would be that your hormones are not balanced. If you are fatigued, you suffer from mood swings, and I'm not talking about just women either. I know men that have this issue. You have low-level vitamin D. You're having issues with premenstrual syndrome or irregular menstrual cycles. There is a good chance that your hormones are not balanced. If you miss a cycle, your cycle's late, or it's very early, or you're spotting in between cycles, that would be best to see. It would be best for you to see a doctor alongside me so that we can support you and suggest areas or certain testing that can confirm that you take appropriate actions to get those hormones more balanced. That's not scary. That's a solution to the chaos, right? So a lot of you know that when you started with me, I asked for that right up front. Some of you don't know this, but if you are not chewing your food, you will really not feel satiated if you're just scarfing it down. Because again, our digestion is not optimal. We again cannot absorb optimally when we're just shoving food in our mouths really quickly. I want you guys to be mindful to sit down and allow yourself to actually feel satiated at the end of your meals. That's another reason that you are not losing weight, because again, that will also contribute to you are not just what you eat, but what you digest, right? So vitamin D, a lot of you have heard me talk about vitamin D. It's a hormone. So it's a very important vitamin, right? It needs to be taken with a fat or with a meal. So if you take your omega-3 fish oils with your vitamin D, you're good. Right now, you should be doubling up on vitamin D if your vitamin D is chronically low, because it will keep your immune system healthy and probably keep you from getting the flu. And if you get the flu, you probably will be able to fight that off more efficiently with that extra vitamin D. But a huge number of our population, and I've talked about this in the past, is very low in vitamin D. We spend a lot of time indoors. A lot of us that don't live in Arizona right now are heading into cooler weathers. My Canadians are like, oh, it's so cold this week. And for those of you who are on the East Coast, same thing. If you're stressed and you're not finding balance in your days, you guys already know that stress can impact your weight. You've seen it on the scale, because a lot of times when you guys are stressed and you haven't slept, or you're stressed and that contributes to not sleeping, the long-term stress again will create that high cortisol, high blood sugar imbalance, and that weight gain around that midsection, hips, butt, and thighs, okay? So if you're starting to notice that and you can tell yourself, yes, I'm definitely under more stress, I probably should tell Kelly, maybe she can help me manage that a little bit better, or you're not sleeping enough, sleep equals repair, like I talked about a couple weeks ago. When your body gets enough rest, it's able to perform and function at its highest level, right? Pretty easy. If you've been a fad dieter in the past, and this is not a way of life, right? People often ask me, I'm so health conscious, I eat clean, I did this, I did that. But there is a definite mentality that I have been realizing is prevalent in our community, and that is, I'm so afraid you gave me more food that I will gain. But then they see the results that they didn't gain, and they're like, how is this possible? How is it possible that I'm not gaining weight right now, and I'm actually losing weight eating more food? How is this possible? Hang on, Siri's got me going. Did you hear him? Just a sec. So that's something that we've got to be really focused on is if you want to change the way you do something, we have to take out the old bad programming and adopt trust to go into that new programming. A lot of you are doing very well with that. Some of you are still really struggling with the eating more mentality because you're not seeing the weight just fall off. It's not going to fall off. It never did. It only did when we were in our teens and early 20s. And over time, the more you dieted and the longer you were a fad dieter, well, you saw. It was like every year you started to put more on because you started to restrict. And we have created some poor behaviors and some poor habits around food. A lot of you are repairing that relationship. I'm going to be talking about why you're exercising, but not in a way that's benefiting your body. And that is definitely something that you guys are going to want to listen to because I'm telling you, I've had to slow the roll on a lot of you who are doing way too much cardio and not enough strength training. And you're overtraining for your calorie deficit, which is keeping you at a stalling point. If you're doing absolutely nothing, that's another reason. If you're sitting around all day, remember, I don't know if I have talked about this in the last 6 months, but I'm going to talk about it just a little bit. Sitting is now said to cut time off of your life. So we know that sleep deprivation is now a carcinogen, and night shift working is actually labeled a carcinogen now. All the studies are showing now that it knocks 7 years off the average woman's life and another 10 years off the average man's life if they've been a night shift worker for longer than 5 years or if they've had prolonged sleep deprivation periods, okay? Now, for you moms that have kids and multiple kids, some of you, you've had 5 or 6 or 7 years of sleep deprivation. I want you to stay on top of making sure you get your needs and your hormones checked every single year up over 35. It is really, really important. Alongside dieting, we need to make sure that we are managing those things. So I want to bring up a couple that I know I've talked about in the past, but Anthony and Ashley both came to me. They're married. They both had a totally different set of goals. Anthony wanted to improve his lab work. He's under the age of 40 and he had a lot of things going on and he's got chronic high BP. He actually has genetic predisposition to it. He also had a very high A1C. That, for those of you who don't know what that is, that would be accumulation of glucose over the last 3-month period, right? And we like to see it under like a 5.5, 5.6. Otherwise, we look at it and we go, oh my gosh, this person is potentially, running the risk of having type 2 diabetes. It is really prevalent and it is becoming more and more prevalent in the younger groups because nobody sleeps anymore. And a lot of people do have a genetic predisposition to higher BP and higher blood glucose because of some of the decisions they've made and also because of genetics, okay? So we wanted to work on Anthony's lab work first. That was our primary focus. But in doing this, he has lost 25 pounds. Actually, maybe a little bit more because I don't have a spreadsheet right in front of me. But he looks like a different person. We did not expect for that to be a thing. We did not expect for that to happen. Wonderful, right? Well, he's at calorie balance. He knows what he can eat. We've added so many calories to where he started. Now that he's lean, I just keep increasing him. He keeps losing weight. I keep increasing him. He keeps losing weight. I keep increasing him, he keeps losing weight, and his blood sugar is managed, okay? But I'm not moving him fast. Ashley, on the other hand, his wife, has been with me a long period of time. She has never done a harsh cut. I have put her into a calorie deficit. She has listened to every piece of feedback that I've given her. I've increased dietary fats to where I needed them to be. Then I dropped them down in her calorie deficit. Now I'm reversing her back out again. And she has not gained a pound in her reverse out because she did it slow, she did it sustained, and she did it in a method that worked for her body, okay? And her age and her hormone profile. And she wasn't eating too much when I got her. She actually was eating too little. 97% of the people who come to me don't have a problem with eating too much. They have a problem with eating too little and then binge eating at the end of the month or end of the week because they were eating too clean. I had to answer that question quite a bit this week as well. So if you're scared of good fats, if you're not eating enough protein on your plate, these are all reasons. that you could be struggling to lose body fat, okay? If your gut, your liver are sluggish, any of those things, then that can also leave you feeling low, bloated, slow, tired. It keeps your brain from functioning properly. So if we don't, again, get enough sleep, sleep is really going to be one of the most important aspects of this program, because when we don't sleep well, it can suppress the hormone system. If we're sitting around all day, we know that people who sit versus ones who stand and walk definitely shave years off of their life. So we want to make sure that if we're looking at the new data that's coming out, and again, 2020 has shown me a lot about science. Hasn't it shown you guys a lot about science? And in fact, it's shown me that a lot of people think that they are scientists, where they probably should go back and get a degree or take a class on experimental research, or even educational research for that matter. That's a basic class. But some of the things that I hear, especially in concern to COVID-19, are just outlandish, absolutely outlandish, all right? So one more thing that could be keeping you from losing body fat that a lot of people don't think of is actually underreporting and overconsuming, or cheating yourself, okay? So instead of being adherent, you lie to yourself that you actually that you did track the little bites that you ate with the kids or while you were making cookies. I will be honest with you, my group does not really have a major problem with this, but I catch it, and sometimes I don't address it with the person until I catch it a couple times. So I might know, I can look at your data, you guys, and I can figure out pretty much anything, and I think most of you have that figured out by now. I am definitely good at that, right? But the bottom line is if we've got all these things going on, right, and you're eating and you're not logging, or you're eating and you're forgetting certain things, and we're really not adherent, even though we say we are and we report we are on the spreadsheets. That's another reason that you're not losing fat, is because you're not adherent to the program, okay? Whew, this light is hot. Let me take this down a notch here. Whew, there we go. Oh, that's way better. Way better. Okay, I'm going to move out of that heat. I've got like a full cardio style sweat going on. So laws of lean, here we go. And this is not in any particular order. We need to supplement with omega-3 fish oil. Again, your omega-3 fish oil matters. The quality matters. Probiotics and omega-3 fish oils are the only thing that I will really say to you is an absolute that you spend good money on. In addition to that would be a good protein powder. So if a protein powder is cheap, it's probably not of good quality. Same thing with a fish oil, and same thing with a good quality probiotic. Now, there are some affordable ones. So if cost is an issue, just let me know, and I will address that with you, and I'll get you some brands that would be more cost effective, and something that's got a higher dosing that you won't have to take 2 or 3 of to get your needs met every day. Add a small dose of caffeine before you train or work out for mental clarity and mental alertness if it's not too late in the day. That will also help to keep you in a thermogenic mode, right? Again, there are no such thing as fat-burning pills, but there are some substances like caffeine that will help with mental alertness and also help you to keep your metabolic capacity pretty high. But lifting weights is going to be the other thing that will keep that metabolism so high that when you stop doing unnecessary cardio and you start doing something that's non-adaptive, like lifting weights, you're going to see that your metabolism will stay high for a very long period of time. And for some people, it actually stays high for 24 hours or more. Now, that would probably be my trained percentage, which would be people that lift very heavy and progressive overload. And again, even beginners will have a long afterburn or a long higher metabolic threshold after training with weights. Cardio is very short because, again, I talked about this and I'm going to be talking about it again later on in December. Cardio is very adaptive. So to change the way that you look, you are going to have to lift weights. It doesn't have to be heavy. If you're brand new, remember that you're going to walk before you run. You're not going to go grab heavy weights if you've never lifted before. You're going to start with what you can do, and you're going to progressively overload the system as the months go on, right? Just know that your weight is probably going to go up just a little bit, because when you are losing body fat and gaining muscle, let's say you lost a half a pound of body fat this month and you gain a half a pound of muscle this month, your weight's going to be the same, isn't it? So to change the way you look, you are going to have to lift weights, or you're going to have to change something about the way that you train. It would be a great idea for you to increase your non-exercise activity thermogenesis after December. When we're going into January, maybe you make a pact with yourself. You're going to take the stairs. You're going to park further away from your car. You're going to stand instead of sitting. You're going to shoot for 10 to 12,000 steps a day on your normal days. And on days where you're more sedentary, you're going to shoot for 10 to 15K steps where you're sitting at your desk. Okay, that means you're going to have to set alarms for yourself. That means that you are going to have to maybe insert yourself into a boot camp class or something of that nature. Groupon is really good and very affordable. After the holidays, they run a lot of awesome specials on Groupon. Load that onto your phone tonight and get ready to purchase maybe a cheaper package and find something that you really enjoy doing. And if you don't like it, it didn't cost you that much money, right? So that's how I found some of the best places that I like to go to for the 3 months, October, November, December. I love to go do group training. When I get into January, I like to lift in my garage January, February, March. And I do my own cardio or my own walking and stuff like that. But I'm very, very active January, February, March, because let's face it, the weather is beautiful here and I have everything that I need in there. Now, come April, May, June again, I go back to classes because those keep me accountable. So you don't need to increase cardio to lose body fat. You need to start lifting weights and you need to start working on your core stability. Increase or add cardio at the end of February or March if needed, but most of you are not going to need that if you just hit your macros, because you guys, you will all lose body fat if you simply adhere to your macros. You do not even need to work out to do that. Now, we would need to adjust your macros accordingly, but again, cardio is carb burning, meaning we burn carbs primarily for fuel when we do cardio. Weight training is both carb and fat burning. We would want to be burning both, wouldn't we? We wouldn't just want to be burning primarily carbs for fuel. It would be much better if we could burn some fat for fuel, right? So walking, core, strength, those are all best if done in the fat loss zone. So those are things that you'll definitely want to make sure that you start thinking about as we get to the end of December and such. We are going to start setting goals. We are going to start finding mentors for you guys. If your mentor is not me, visualize your success, but put somebody in charge of being your mentor. Or if you have a mentor that maybe you think is not a very healthy mentor for you, you can run it past me and I'll tell you whether or not I think that that's somebody that you should be patterning your life after. But again, it's up to you. It's not really up to me. I mean, you can ask me if I think the person's a good person, but I probably don't even know that person, right? So I can't judge them. But again, I want you guys to be visualizing your perfect body. And I want you to visualize how you would feel if you actually lost all of the body fat and started feeling the way that you've always wanted to feel, because most of you have a pretty darn good start on that. We're going to be eating higher volume foods, meaning we're going to be eating more protein, more fat, and fiber. And when we drop fats down in your calorie deficit and your cut, for those of you who will be cutting in January, you are going to need to eat more carbohydrates that are not processed and packaged, but ones that have higher fiber content, like 3 to 5 grams a meal, instead of having a banana or grapes or something just to fill your carbs. Right now, it's super fun, right? We've got a lot more to work with, and a lot of you are getting more and more and more, and it's like Christmas every week. It's not really Christmas when I start to take them away, though. So we want to be eating about every 3 to 4 hours starting in January when we go into our leaning phases, because again, we're not going to have all the macros to snack on. I know. And it's not like we're going to be going into this big deprivation. I would never do that to you guys. I want to be teaching you success on how to listen to your insulin signals, your ghrelin and leptin signals. And I want you to make sure that you're not snacking, because every time you eat, your body signals an insulin response. So it will mean that you're hungry, and you're basically just teaching yourself to be hungrier every time you snack, because you're like, oh, I'm hungry, eat. Oh, I'm hungry, eat again. Oh, I'm hungry, eat again. Make yourself wait. Have larger meals. If you have larger meals, you will not be hungry. we're going to need to make sure that we don't snack. We need to teach ourselves how to have rational thoughts and try to get through that so that we can control the brain and also control your blood sugar. One thing I want to talk about, but I don't want you guys to feel like I'm harping on you, is the level of mental toughness that we have going on right now. The level of mental toughness that we have going on right now is about 65 to 70%. In January, you're going to see it's probably going to be closer to 80 to 90% because anyone can do anything for 8 to 10 weeks. Then we're going to need to pump the brakes a little bit and give ourselves some grace again, kind of like we're going into holiday season, and have a little bit of a diet break. And maybe we take the month of April just to kind of eat closer to maintenance, save more of our carbs, have those, and not have to structure our meals so carefully, right? We are going to have to talk about sacrifice and being mentally tough for 8 to 10 weeks starting in January if we really want to see the best results with fat loss, okay? We're going to focus on 80% high quality, low sugar, nutrient dense, greater satiation foods, high volume, especially on days that you are not active. Now, on days that you are active, you probably still want to make sure that you have your snack meal be something that's a little bit more flexible. When you're in a calorie deficit, I still want you guys to have a little something that you look forward to every single day. And if you know that you get the worst cravings at nighttime, then maybe save your mini Snickers or your mini Cadbury or your Reese's Pieces for nighttime or your little bowl of ice cream. Or a lot of you have these little things that you do on days that you train, don't you? And you also have things that you do on days that you don't train. But they might not be as sugary and they might not be as flexible or as junky, right? Because let's face it, a Kind bar is not really the same as a Reese's Pieces bar. And I'll tell you why. A Kind bar is minimally processed and packaged, where a Reese's is very processed and packaged. And pretty much everything in it is high fructose corn syrup, etc. It is not bad. We are going to have those things, but less and less when we have less to work with our macros. We're going to be saving more carbohydrates for around the times that we train or we are most active, meaning that we should have more carbs and fat earlier in the day, not hoarding our food for nighttime. Some of you need to hear this. And we're going to come out hard in the morning when we are more active and we need the brain power and we're so sluggish and we need the caffeine and blah, blah, blah. We should be eating our food around the times where we are most active and tapering it off at night, right? Otherwise, some of us could be cutting into that valuable, wonderful fat loss phase at nighttime while we're sleeping. Wouldn't it be great if we could just lose body fat while we sleep? Well, we can. But you've got to make sure that you're not hoarding all of your food at nighttime. One, it disrupts sleep. It can. Two, you're not running a marathon when you're sleeping. And three, you are active and you need to be, mentally cognizant all day long. So don't hoard those fats. Don't hoard those carbs for nighttime like you don't have any food. You guys know you have plenty of food right now, and I'm not going to take it away and put you into starvation camp. I promise you that. I promise you that. If you have those protein servings at every meal, you're going to do great. Drink more water. Water is going to be key and critical for leaning in January. We may not be perfect with it in December, but I want you to work up to half your weight in ounces in January. So I want you guys to kind of think this conversation tonight is going to be implemented. Last week of December, we're going to get our gallon jug. We're going to have everything laid out. We're going to have our new Christmas exercise gear, our trackers. I would highly recommend getting a fitness tracker, even if it's just a cheapy one that counts your steps and your heart rate. That's going to give you more data than no data at all, right? And again, the trackers are moderately off, and some of them are more than moderately off. So if you track your steps, that's a great reason to have a tracker. It'll get you out there. It'll get you moving. I want you guys to be focusing on meal prep. The people who meal prep are fat loss machines. Use our recipes in the group. If you need extra things for prep, a rice cooker, a crock pot, Instapot, these are all great things to ask your family for a holiday gift, or even just a gift card so that you can get one off of Amazon, right? Set goals and create visual outlets. Put out an outfit for yourself, hang it up, and put a reasonable time frame on that outfit so that you can get into that. Now, again, if you're a size 21 and you put a 3 out, I'm here to tell you that it's going to be a couple years before you get into that 3, okay? So let's be reasonable about it. Again, we're going to create these visuals and we're going to be reasonable and not ideal. We're going to be realistic, okay? We are going to remove in January all unnecessary food temptations. Some of you have already done that, and I'm really proud of you. You did it in November because you knew it was going to be inevitable that they're back in the house in December. There's going to be more sweets, treats, sugar, etc. And eating sugar ignites hunger. Eating extra carbs ignites hunger. So you guys need to know, if you make those sacrifices, you may have hunger for the next 2 or 3 days. Okay? So I would highly recommend after Christmas, just start boxing up, getting rid of, taking these things, donating them. I always take them down to the shelter. There is a shelter in every major city. In January, you're going to find out that a sacrifice is not a sacrifice unless you actually pay the price. You're not going to give up something that doesn't mean anything to you. You're going to give up something that does mean something to you for 8 to 10 weeks. And I'm going to ask you guys what that is, and I'm going to reward you for that behavior. If you know that you've been overdoing alcohol, or you did in December, you know that you've been eating out or did in December, you know that you have not been exercising and making excuses, or you did in December, I'm going to ask you to make a very tangible goal of a 4 or 5 week period where you actually make a sacrifice and pay the price, okay? That's what fat loss is all about, unfortunately. Fat loss, if it was easy and no one had to sacrifice, Americans would all be fit, and look at it. It's the opposite, right? And the reason is because Americans are impatient. People are. People are very impatient. They don't give things long enough to actually see whether or not they work, and they actually don't give it 90% or better effort the whole time they're doing that 3-month period. They're like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, like I talked about last week, okay? Most of you right now, I would say 70% of you are absolutely 2 feet in. And most of you are reaping the benefits of that going into the holidays. And I actually had about a dozen people last week weigh in at their very lowest weight for the year. So proud of themselves, sending me their pictures. Not all of them do I post because some people don't want me to post their pictures, and I won't. I will never, ever post your progress pictures without your authorization. But some of you, I ask, and you guys say yes, and you never have a problem with it. So thank you for that. And congratulations for hitting your lowest weights these last couple weeks. That is really exciting going into the holidays. And it also gives you a little bit of a blanket or a buffer, doesn't it? So take your multivitamins. January 1st, I want you guys, if you're starting to feel sluggish or tired in the middle of the day, about 12 to 2 p.m., maybe a little bit of green tea extract. Again, that's not very high in caffeine, but is also got some research behind it that will help with mental alertness and, again, higher metabolic function. Not a fat burner, but the higher we can run the metabolism, the better, right? The hotter we can get the body, the better. There is a lot of new research coming out on training and nutrition. I'm reading through it at my Wild Heart's Content. I've been sending certain videos and lots of different research to you. Sometimes it's hard for me because I know if I send the research study, a lot of you are going to be like, can't you just tell me what this says? So I've been finding videos that say the same thing virtually, but break it down into lamest terms for you, whether it has to do with the brain, your GI, headaches, hormones, whatever it might be, or certain micro or macronutrients that help with certain ailments that you guys are dealing with. I can only do my job at maximum capacity if you guys share your lab work with me. Again, I cannot comment to you on certain things. One of those is going to be your hematology report. That's not metabolic. The only thing metabolic that comes in that is usually the fasting glucose or A1C. So in that respect, I can tell you what I see in your hormone panel that is metabolic. And I can also look at what we need to do to modify your macros to have a better situation, okay? So what did we learn tonight? Lifting isn't better than cardio, but as far as fat loss is concerned and muscle gaining and retaining, lifting is better, okay? If you are an endurance athlete, I don't say this to be pointed, and you guys know that, and you love what you do, we just need to feed you for that kind of activity. That way, you can still move towards a fat loss phase, but you're not in such a calorie deficit that you're absolutely storing every single thing because you're in a calorie deficit, and your body, when it gets more, just sucks it in, if you know what I mean. When we have that kind of adaptive expenditure, a lot of times what ends up happening with endurance athletes is they think they can eat as much as they used to eat when they were 20 and did the running, but now their body has adapted to it after 10 years of doing the running, or 15 or 20 years. And some people love to run and it's their mental escape. I don't want them not to do it, but just know that if you've been doing this adaptive type of fitness, maybe try something different so that you can see whether or not it helps excel you to the next level and push you past these plateaus and these quitting points. Thank you guys for paying attention tonight. I know a lot of you will be going back and listening to this at your leisure. If you have any questions, put them in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next week when we talk about mistakes and how to bounce back from them.